who healed herself from an eating disorder. She's a fruit-based yoga coach and therapist and an all-round good person. So welcome, Jen.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here and to share. I actually haven't even shared my story yet, live on an interview. At least in the last 3 years. Like 3 years ago, I might have shared something, but it was more so like I wasn't fruitarian yet, so it was more so it did have to do with veganism and yoga. That's been consistent for me. But a lot of my recovery before was more so like I recovered from anorexia. I did it through bodybuilding. The gym saved me, like kind of thing. But over time, I kind of realized that that was more so a way of like suppressing some trauma. But once I tried out raw veganism, which I first tried on a raw vegan business retreat, actually, I more so went for meeting vegans because I was 7 years vegan before I had even met anybody that was vegan. And the first people that I met, because I'm from like a really small town, like it's just mountains, Hope,
Yeah.
British Columbia, Canada. So yeah, I was excited to just meet people, and it was actually a raw vegan retreat. And I was like, oh, that won't stop me. I want to meet like Ted Carr and Melissa, Raw Food Romance, and
Yeah.
Nate. So they were the host of it, and I, yeah, wanted to go try it out. And it actually worked out really good for me that I got to have like 7 days raw with such like good recipes, right? Like they have recipes like sushi and wraps and burgers, so you don't feel like you're missing out on anything. You're just getting to experience more foods. So
Yeah.
that was really good for me. And I realized just like how much better I felt that week, also with like, of course, the connections and activities and that. And then ever since then, I just like anytime I would introduce cooked foods again, I just didn't feel as good as I feel when I'm on raw foods. So knowing that, it was just hard to like stay away from that path. So I slowly started to include more raw foods in the day and then finish, of course, with kind of like fruits for breakfast, salads for lunch, and maybe some rice or sweet potatoes for dinner with a bunch of cooked veggies and peas and things. And yeah, I slowly transitioned just to like all raw foods again, but it definitely brought up a lot for me right away. Like anytime I would be on like full fruit, I would just like be able to not be suppressing your emotions so much with food. I was just learning so much, and I also actually watched a lot of the interviews on Gillian Berry's in YouTube.
Yeah.
So that was actually when I first saw your interview, and I had been at that time I was eating I remember when I watched that video, I was still having a little bit of cooked foods, but I was only eating fruits and veggies because I found that only fruits and veggies would digest well for me. Because I've had like really bad like IBS and just bloating and brain fog like whenever I was eating other foods. And I could never get to raw vegan because I was like, I'm getting so many calories from these like cooked veggies like potatoes, even corn and peas, that I was like worried about giving that up.
Yeah.
But um, then and I was like, if I was eating raw vegan, like what would I eat for fruits that would give me enough calories? But I wasn't really like thinking of how there's obviously bananas and avocados and things I haven't tried like yet, like sapote and like even persimmon and jackfruit and that fruit that tastes like bubblegum. What's that one again? That's jackfruit,
Jackfruit.
yeah.
It is jackfruit.
So I've gotten to try those now, and that's helped a lot. But at that time, I saw your interview, and I was kind of ashamed already that like, oh, I'm being restrictive just by only eating fruits and veggies. I
Yeah.
can't share that online. Then you kind of mentioned like, oh, you're eating fruits and veggies, and it's actually raw fruits and veggies. And I just gave that a try, and it worked like better than anything.
Oh,
So that
oh,
was like a really good turning point for me.
oh, I'm so glad you've been through so much and you can see that in some of your pictures. You really have. And what is so enlightening about you is what you share now is so inspiring. Like every time you come up on my post, on my feed, I just feel so inspired by what you've done. And to me, that signals it symbolizes somebody who has been through a lot, has really been um, in the dark and is finding the light. For you, even when you first went vegan or you found bodybuilding and you'd had an eating disorder, how did the eating disorder start? How old were you as well when it started?
Mm-hmm. That's something I've recently also realized is at first I was like, okay, like I finally uncovered the root of my eating disorder that I was suppressing, like the trauma. And I was like, okay, like obviously at the root of the eating disorder is anxiety and depression. So what started that? And then I was like, okay, bad gut health. Like obviously when you eat a standard American diet, which I was raised on, like cheeseburgers and ice cream, basically, like McDonald's and comfort foods, but like a lot of mashed potatoes and gravy and meats, you kind of just have those issues. And then I ended up suppressing them through like an eating disorder. But then there's also other parts that I ended up getting into where I was like, a lot of it actually can come down to suppressing like traumas. And I realized a big part of my trauma was like when you're 11 years old, you get taken out of cheer to be forced into hospital, like against your will. You don't really have a choice as a kid for eating disorder treatment. So since I was underweight, it was like, we gotta send you to hospital. Then they actually didn't give me a chance at all to eat as a kid. They're just like, you have anorexia, that means you don't eat, so we're just gonna tube feed you. And that was like really hard for me when I was younger, and I was just like bleeding, like screaming at everybody basically at that time to like be able to eat basically, and they wouldn't listen even if I did have a nice argument. And that was like the lowest time in my life. Like that's like the only time I've ever really felt like really suicidal. Yet I'm like not somebody who's like that. Like I'm usually really positive. And I during that time I kind of just like numbed myself somehow because like I didn't have food to numb myself, but all I had was like a journal and a piece of paper. I had no friends. I wasn't allowed to have visitors. I wasn't allowed to talk to my family. I was so young. And I didn't know how long I would be there. They didn't tell you how long it would take you to gain the weight. You don't get to see your weight. So I just didn't know how long I would be there. And it was like 3 months at least, if not 6 months, because I've had a lot of 6-month admissions as well. Mm. And yeah, the doctor just wouldn't tell me. He's like, oh, like day by day. And I was just so hungry the whole time that I would just like think about McDonald's and ice cream and all those emotional foods that I had as a kid. So I was so excited to like get that out. And then I eventually did go to Children's. I got more like mental, emotional, physical, spiritual support rather than just the physical. And then the fact that when they focus on the physical, it's not even only that it's not a holistic treatment based on only focusing on the physical, but they also only focus on the weight, which is like such a small part of the physical. So I knew that wasn't like the right treatment. And when I got out of Children's Hospital, that is when I did well for about 3 years. But that's where I was like suppressing a lot of that stuff that I didn't realize. And when I was an adult about 3 years ago, that's when COVID happened. And that's when the gym shut down. And that's when basically I started to lose weight a little bit again and was like practicing with the raw vegan. And that's the thing too, like I don't want to blame veganism for like causing those things to happen because I know I would have relapsed regardless. And I'm glad that I did because I got to like deal with those things. And I'm even glad that like I don't care that I lost my muscle in that because even though I lost a lot of my muscle, I gained so much more, right? Like I gained an understanding, I gained a healthy lifestyle, I gained having clarity in my mind. Like there's just so many other things that are so much more important than that I know when I do build back more muscle, which I have been getting back like some muscle, it's just not like fully there yet. But yeah, I know it'll be like a strong foundation this time. And overall, what I was getting to is it's not only the trauma of the hospital that led to that, which it kind of was during this last like 3 years, but I've also realized it's also about just like even before that, before I ended up in hospital to begin with, like when I first ever had anorexia, which I didn't know what anorexia was. I was just diagnosed with it before knowing what it was versus some people that might like see a picture online and like try to be anorexic, like that kind of thing. It wasn't like that. And I kind of realized like, okay, like in hospital, I have that situation where I feel like everything's outside of my control, which is similar to when my parents divorced. Or I feel like people are really like mad at me, which is like my dad was like very aggressive and angry my whole life. And I just always felt like I needed to be really quiet and like that. And then also just that I was raised on such like comfort foods. My mom's always told me like, oh, like if you're sad, eat ice cream type thing, where I've just always had those emotional eating patterns. So yeah, I've kind of realized like it's obviously a lot more than just the hospital thing. And it's also about like the whole victim mentality of like, oh, the hospital's doing it to me type thing. So just like taking on ownership for that and yeah, working through all that. Yeah. And also like learning how to heal basically your inner child and like being able to nourish my inner child back to life and reparent yourself. That was really powerful for me. So I had like this weird OCD thing for a while where they told me I couldn't restore my weight on a fruit-based diet or as a vegan or just like without a tube feed. So I was so determined, like, yes, I can, that I would like lose that weight just to show that I could. Like it was like this weird internal knowing because you feel so disempowered when they're like, you can't do this, you can't do that. So I just wanted to have like that inner knowing and that inner belief because there is something so powerful about being able to heal yourself. And when that's taken away from you, that just didn't feel right to me. So when I did eventually, there's been situations where I would like run away from hospital I did end up putting the weight on myself. And once I did it myself, that's when I never relapsed. So I'm a little bit stubborn, but like everything is working out for the right reason, right?
Yeah, no, it sure is. And look, I will say that after all I've been through, some of my psychiatric visits, not my trauma surgeries even, are my most traumatic. Like I think the whole way it's handled is not right. But what is so powerful is when you take into your own hands the fact that from when you're a child, most of what people have told you is incorrect, and you have the ability inside you to make a choice and make the right choice. And when you make that choice, it almost glows so much. People can't touch you, as in you then get to create your own journey. And that's what I see when I look at you. I see this woman who, because I've seen photos of you, and that a body really resembles what is going on inside, whether it's physical, emotional, I think it's spiritual, and you've overcome so much. I think it's so powerful. What was it in you that awoke? And when was that moment where you went, right, I know I can do this?
I think the moment is more so like small things that add up, where you just like connect these different parts of your path that are like, okay, I did it then, I know I can do it now. But there is also like another spiritual component to things, to where once I was eating the raw foods, that is when you're able to be in like this much lighter energy. Where I realized that for so long I had been living in such like a dark existence, almost like unintentionally, because with anorexia you do like you're slowly killing yourself in some way, or with any addiction. So just kind of looking at that and being like, why am I like unintentionally or unconsciously like slowly killing yourself? And it's like, okay, now I actually want to intentionally incarnate into this light reality, versus like kind of wanting to leave this heavy reality. Because when you have an addiction, you have like this cloud over your head, and or any mental illness where everything just like you don't really want to exist as much. And then when you go into a hospital, it's just reaffirmed to you like, yeah, you're not allowed to have anything here. You have to pee in a commode or pee in diapers in your hospital bed when you're 21 years old. It's like you don't feel like you're treated right, and everything is just reinforced like, hey, this world is a nasty place, I don't want to be here. And it shouldn't be like that. Like you should be introduced to things like living foods where you see the light in life again.
Yeah, I think also I believe in, and because I started my mental health journey at about 36, and what I realized is it's more of a spiritual awakening. So when people go through mental health crises, they're at that point where you can feel a lot of darkness, but you can also feel light. You're like really, really sensitive. And I find that hospitals is probably the worst place to be when you're so sensitive. And I think it's why many people in there get, as you would know, get trapped in a loop. It's like a sliding door. They keep coming back. But some people see that light and don't continue to fall into that victimhood. It's when you finally make that choice to know that you can make the change. And I find it so incredible that you've overcome all of this. And I know that there'd still be days where things are being processed, but it's incredible. What I did want to ask you was, when you started to transition and you said you were eating the cooked foods, and you didn't feel as good, what was that like? Like, what was the difference like for you? Because for me, it was like tremendous. And a lot of people don't notice it. A lot of people can do raw all day, cooked at night, and they're fine. But for you, what was when you were eating the cooked, what was it like mentally, physically?
Well, first I want to say about how you're saying with how someone can go into a hospital and kind of like repeat that cycle. I think that's also about where people get stuck in like feeling comfortable in what's not comfortable. But you have to learn how to be comfortable in what's truly comfortable. And that was the hardest part about being vegan for me and being raw vegan, was once I realized how good I could feel, I self-sabotaged that. I didn't want to feel that good. I didn't think I felt like worthy of feeling that good. I didn't know what life would be like. I was scared of all the new possibilities that you can do. Like even doing an interview, like that's kind of scary for people, right? So you just like avoid those things, and it's safer, it's easier, but it's obviously not the best thing for you. Even if it feels comfortable or safe, it's actually like something that's not safe. So just like being aware of that, and also getting out of those, you can have like an upward spiral or a downward spiral where it's really easy to slowly go back into things, but it's also, you can have positive momentum where you start to get stronger and you get stronger and stronger. So just trying to switch into that. And that's what raw foods allows me to do. Especially, I would notice if I did eat the cooked foods, I just would instantly get more into like the negative
Mm.
mindset where it just slowly starts to go down, or you'd start to slowly have more and more cravings for even just simple cooked foods. Whereas when you're not having those foods, your microbiome changes and you start to crave the different foods. So a lot of the time with eating disorder treatment, you can get blamed for like, it's your fault that you're bloating, it's your fault that you're feeling upset or depressed after you eat, but sometimes it's actually also biological. It's actually also something going on with your body or your gut health.
Mm.
And rather than looking at only treating the brain, I think we should also look at treating the gut for people with eating disorders, because
Mm.
that's what changed everything for me is when I started looking at stopped blaming myself and started realizing like not blaming the food either though, but looking at both.
Yeah. You know, I think a lot of people, what happens when you have the raw foods is people, I anyway, stopped blaming the food, as in, I think you can project onto foods, you can project onto people. But once I started eating the raw foods, for me, it all started with the lightness of the food. So once I let go of the cooked food, the food was so light that it felt good. And if you feel good, you start to have that self-talk, which was so beautiful. And that self-talk, then when I finally went back to society, would project onto society. So my whole life started to heal as soon as I got rid of cooked foods. What happened mentally for you with the raw foods once you went onto them? What was your self-talk like?
When I was in hospital the 3 years ago when I first got like re-traumatized with the tube feed, I also had gotten like a million followers on TikTok taken away. And like I had 20 clients that I was helping like one-on-one at that time. And I just got all like I couldn't connect to them because I was forced into hospital. So I overall was just in a completely like I need to like destroy myself. Like I just felt so bad about myself because I felt like I had like my whole life I've always been focused on trying to save people, which is the other thing. Like I can't do that too strongly because ultimately like we can only save ourselves. So now so like I push like I want people to be able to I want to help them be able to heal themselves, save themselves, free themselves, regenerate themselves, but giving that power to them versus I used to put so much responsibility on myself of like I need to save these people. So as soon as I saw that my TikTok was deleted or like people were like reporting my things, I was like, oh my God, I'm a bad influence. So I felt like, okay, I shouldn't be here because I'm like a bad influence on people. I'm killing people. Like I like really, really internalized that. And that was really, really hard for me because as a child, when I was first in hospital, my boyfriend, my first ever boyfriend, which of course feels like the love of your life at that time, um, when I was admitted to hospital, he actually killed himself. So that just like really, really bothered me. I was like, okay, like again, like I'm not, but really it's not because like the reason that I couldn't help those people kind of is because I'm not helping myself. And that's why it's so important for us to help ourselves.
Sometimes people go through so much. It is easier to help a million TikTok followers, 20 clients, a boyfriend, than it is to look at your own problems because they're so painful. And that's what's so powerful is you are leading by your own example. Like you've loved yourself so much. I see you doing yoga, you're eating fruit, you're sharing what you've learned with the world, and that will change lives. I think that's the change. Did that come with the raw foods, that change within where you saw it was you that you wanted to look after? The inner child, right?
Yeah, it gave me the personal power back of recognizing like I don't need to ask any about this. You can look into nature. You don't have to look at okay, a dietitian even has forced me to eat cooked foods, but are they even looking at nature? Like no other animal in nature is cooking its food. So it
Mm-hmm.
just gave me back like the reinsurance of like I used to have so much anxiety about things. I didn't understand where food was even coming from. Like how did they even make this cheeseburger? Like it just it's so far and disconnected from nature. So once you connect to nature, you connect to your true self, and that's when you can actually heal yourself because you're connected to source, you're connected to spirit, you're connected to God, and God saves you, God heals you, God frees you. But that's also you freeing you and being aware of your own power. And people need to take back their personal power if we want to heal everybody. Because if you heal yourself, that's where it starts, right?
Yeah, it does. And truly it's not just the foods, it's So once the foods gave me this clarity, I was able to sit by the water, be in the water, sit on the grass with nature a bit, be under the sun, and all of those things, as you just said, they're being closer to God, is the closer I did godly things, I just healed. Like and it's right there. So it's right there for all of us. What else did you do besides the raw foods to heal?
A big part of it is connecting online, like either finding some sort of community to join, which I have my own. I have a fruit-based yogi community where people can come and do yoga, right? And talk to like-minded people, and also educating yourself. So like having a classroom or courses that you go through, or watching YouTube videos that inspire you of other people on a similar path so that you're not feeling alone. And then having in-person connections as well, such as like touching a person or touching a pet, doing some yoga, so getting your body moving in whatever way you love. Like I really want to stress with activity to always do something that you enjoy, because if it's fun, you're going to do it. If it's not, it's ultimately not even good for you. Like you have to look at other things, right? Like if you're so stressed about food, then no food is as harmful as no food, or as eating a food and saying that it's so bad for you. Like if somebody really believes that fruit is gonna like really harm them or something, they almost shouldn't eat that fruit if like their belief is that strong about it. But of course we want to work on that belief.
Yes.
But there's so much more that goes into it. And also getting outside, getting fresh air, and getting enough sleep, so like at least 8 hours every night. Having a morning and evening routine is really positive for me. In the morning, I'll do like gratitude. In the evening, it's more so reflecting on the day and what I can do better the next day. Also, what I like am proud of myself for that day, and listening to some sort of affirmations before bed to put yourself in like that powerful state, or reading like your own life vision, your own life goals, because your subconscious is really strong, especially before you go to bed, and that will sink in, and it just completely transforms you from the inside out, which is also part of like letting light flow through you. And the reason that I'm so strong about like source and love and light is because when I was in hospital, I actually had like a near death experience where I was just so underweight that my heart really couldn't take it anymore. And you can see like by the pictures just like how bad that got. And
Mm.
the other thing is with anorexia, like I knew I was underweight, but when I look back, like I didn't realize I was that underweight. Like I didn't think it was that bad.
Mm.
So it is really like a serious illness. Uh, so they did end up like calling a crash cart, and that experience I haven't really shared it as much yet, so I won't share it like very much. But a little bit about it is like when that happened, first it was kind of just like a weird experience, like internally, like I kind of just had like a bad stomach feeling, and like almost started like with like diarrhea, if that makes sense. And I just like was not doing good. I think it might have been like some sort of medication that I took, because this time I wasn't put on any sort of medication that like they have done, like where before you get restrained, you'll get like put to sleep, and that never even helps because it's not good to feel like your body is like you can't control your body, and you're in a situation where you can't even call anyone for help, and you just have to like completely surrender and trust the medical staff, which of course I have experiences of not really wanting to trust that. And I also didn't mention how like the tube feed doesn't really go well for me. So even as a kid, like I would like anytime I had tube feed, I would end up like I would throw up, but the tube comes out your mouth, and then you have to get it all put down again. So that's why it was so traumatic for me, because of how like painful it is and how many times they have to do that. And the tube feed ingredients are actually the things that you hear like all the time not to have, which is like canola oil, whey protein isolate, some soy protein isolate, and mainly corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup, and sugar. And that's like what you have to live on. So of course my mental health is like not that great in those situations. But then you're just put on, like if your mental health isn't good, you're going to be put on more medications, or you're going to be sent to a mental illness place or a mental health room, which is like a room with nothing but hardwood floor and a toilet. And it's like, who wouldn't feel like whose mental health is going to be good? Who's crazy? The one that's locking that person in the room, or the one being locked in the room? So I just don't really get along very well with the mental health system. But I did work in the mental health system actually over the last 3 years. Like anytime I was out of hospital, I would go and help people, because I want them to know, like, I understand you're not crazy. Because if you believe you're crazy, you're going to create a crazy life for yourself.
That's so
And
beautiful. Sorry,
yeah,
that's so beautiful that you did that. You're their light in their darkest hour.
because that's all I wanted during that time, was just someone who's also been through it to show that they can do it, rather than just somebody who's reading it from the book and looking at how you look and then dictating your whole story, or like, you're gonna have anorexia for the rest of your life. If I believed that, that's what I would do. Like, that's what I would create for myself. But like, I don't believe that, so it's not what I'm creating for myself. And I just want people to understand like that they are powerful and they don't need to just accept a diagnosis or completely, yeah, you know, like completely they should take back their power. But when I did have that near death experience, I had like a lot of this like big life review, and all of my memories, I went back through it all. I have to plug in the sheet here. Oh, there we go. Okay. And I went through all of my life experiences from a kid, but I was like my adult self. So I could just like understand so much clearer what was going on. But most of the stuff that I was seeing was just birthday parties, hot dogs and chips and fruits.
Wow.
And like all I would really experience was just food memories. And it was all food. Like that's all I experienced, because my only good experiences from childhood have been around food. And then the other experiences that I lived through was all the traumatic experiences. So I saw like all my tube feed admissions. I saw all my children's hospital admissions. I saw all my just tons of hospital admissions basically, and tons of like my parents' divorce, just like anything traumatic that happened in my life. I also relived all of that. And I was like, when I came out of this, I was just and like when I was like, even like having a conversation with God, I didn't want to I didn't want that to be my life experience. I knew there was so much more than just like looking back on my life later and being like, all I experienced was food and trauma. Like, who wants to live like that? Like, I want to experience so much more. And I would have like these weird visions where I was like pulling yoga poses, and every time that I pulled a yoga pose, somebody in the hospital would come back to life. And that just felt really powerful for me, like during that time. And I did see like a lot of just like white light. And I was in this extremely, extremely like fear state. And when I crossed over to the afterlife, it wasn't like that. It was like pure love. And I didn't really want to leave that, but I knew that I had to leave that. I knew I had to get back to life. So I started fighting really, really hard to get back to life. And I got through like all of these barriers of just like negative energy basically, but I had to remind myself of love, and I had to say like, my hand is on my heart and we are free. I had to repeat that mantra, and I had to do sit-ups. I don't know why. And once I did sit-ups, I like came back to life, and I barfed up avocado everywhere, because before this I had like an avocado near my bed, and it was in the middle of the night, and I thought I was gonna die because my blood sugar was weird, and I ate a bunch of dates and avocado. And then and it was not a good experience. But then like everybody cleaned that up, and my dad came in later, and like I did see like all my parents around my bed too, like when I was having that, and they were all like saying goodbye to me, and I saw like all my dead loved ones. So it's a very wild experience, but it's like something that just doesn't leave you. And ever since then, it's been like just how much I know that like the afterlife life is love, and that I can bring that love into this life too, and that this life can be just as light. And honestly, I feel like heaven, like hell is really just this earth if you're not living understanding that.
I cannot explain to anybody more what you just said about hell being right here. It's that's so true. It really is. That is, what a story. I mean, what a life story. That is incredible. And it just adds to the power you have now in what you do. Like, our experiences create who we are and give us that drive every single day. When you were talking about when you had this experience and all your memories were trauma and then food, my jaw dropped, because it's almost like your higher self was showing you that is the link. Like, because once you take out, we're literally eating traumatized animals, chemicals that have been processed at such boiling temperatures. We don't want to be boiled. When you think of what you're putting in yourself with the fruits, it's pure light, right? And joy. And the amount of trauma in my life when I eat this way is literally zero, besides some sort of trigger of a memory, right? Do you believe that your higher self was showing you the correlation between food and trauma, if that's all you were seeing?
I could see that, but I think the biggest takeaway for me was more so that if I don't live eating those foods that like allow me to not only enjoy the food, but then to enjoy my life after the food, then
Yes.
all I'm gonna experience is bad moment, like bad trauma.
Yeah.
And then I'm coping with that bad trauma through the food. That's how my life had been. But if
Yeah.
I eat good food, eat foods that allow me to live a good life, good mood, good food, then you're going to be able to, yeah, like enjoy your life, enjoy the food. So now I'm going to be able to help other people. I'm going to be able to have a family, have relationships, have friends, have a business, be able to inspire others and go on interviews more and like travel and do a lot more in life. Where when I look back on my life at 90, at 101, no, 111, 11, 11, I'm going to live at least till 111. I'm going to be really proud of like all I've experienced, and I'm not going to have all these traumatic things to relive because I've already had to experience all the trauma. I'm already done with that.
Yeah.
And I'll have just only good things to look forward, like to think of that aren't even going to be about food, but a lot better.
Yeah. I love those goals. I think they're amazing goals to have. And you've come so far. How long has it been since you started to gain weight? Like when did you start to gain weight again? Because I know you lost weight and then you got better and then it dropped again and then you're back up and just getting better and better. How long's this new you been coming through this time?
This time I've been maintaining like where I've been at least 6 months, if not a year, because you kind of just lose track. So
Yeah.
it's been a really long time now. And that's when I did decide to like come back online, because I didn't share like for the last 3 years because I was just like, well, if the raw food isn't going to be good for me, like I don't want to share this. But then when I realized like how much better I've been doing for 3 years, and at one point I was just like, okay, I'm just going to keep teaching kids yoga because that's what I had been doing as well. And that was just fun for me, where when you like experience such light that you just kind of stop really caring about anything. But then like there's also just that deeper part of me the whole time that was like, I know I can help so much more people if I go back online, where that just like never stops pulling at my soul, like anytime you're meditating or something. So then I'm back and I'm ready to share the light within living foods like you do too, right?
Yeah, no, I'm so glad you are. I also feel, well, for me, there's a, it's almost like the pull to share when I got well was so strong. I could not share. Like I couldn't keep this all a secret. I just wanted to get out there. Do you feel that too?
Yeah, well, there's that other side of things too, right? Like depression can be self-suppression. So a big
Yes.
part of healing is expressing yourself. And I like to give people too, like you're doing, like give them a place where they can share, even within community if they're talking to others in groups, but also eventually sharing interviews like you're doing. I think that's really powerful for people.
Oh, thank you. And I just love all your sharing. I think it's amazing. So what are you actually eating in a day at the moment on the raw vegan diet?
It's gotten just simpler and simpler. And it's also interesting. I feel like in the beginning, I also like almost was still stuffing my face all the time, in like a little bit, like it was healthier than just eating like cheeseburgers all day or something. But it was like I was still eating like way too many veggies, where eventually I would eat all day, but I didn't get enough calories. So when
Mm.
I gained the weight, I actually just removed the veggies completely and just stuck to the fruits. Uh, and that only took 3 months to just like fully restore my weight. So I was
Wow.
really determined during those times. And then I've just been including now like a little bit of like leafy greens or herbs or sprouts with like some seeds and like maybe fatty fruits or something in the evening. But I still stick to the fruits primarily. And it's interesting because like I was all saying like everybody was kind of, or a lot of people were in like the bodybuilding space got all like mad at me sort of for like pushing this whole like 4,000 calorie thing. And at the time, that's how much calories I was eating, but that wasn't how much I was absorbing. And
No.
that's like that with a lot of people in the bodybuilding space if they're pushing too much protein powders, or with people that have bad digestive issues, and also with anorexia recovery, they actually need a lot more calories.
Mm.
But with food, I only needed around like 2,500 consistently every day, which I stopped tracking. But when I would track, it was about that much, and that allowed me to put on the weight versus like needing so much and not even absorbing it, because I actually absorb it well. So that
Mm.
was really powerful for me, and just finally feeling satisfied. Like I could listen to my body and eat as much as I want until I'm like physically full and mentally full. Then you move on with your day. That fullness quickly passes. You're not feeling heavy all day.
No.
So that used to bother me. Like when I first went raw vegan, I was like, there needs to be something like a rock in my stomach. Why is there not just like indigested food all day? And I would just eat like veggies all day or something. But then I wouldn't get enough calories of fruit because I was too full. So
Yeah.
just removing that while it was really helpful for me.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, today I usually eat like lightest to heaviest. So in the morning today, even like I had started with coconut water, or I'll do like a greens juice or something, then go into lighter fruits. Like I had cantaloupe usually I would just have like a cantaloupe, but it was smaller, so I had it with some nectarines. And then at lunchtime, I had a bunch of Concord grapes off like the tree in my neighborhood. So like anytime I can get fruits,
Wow.
like, it's great to do. And then the grapes, I had just like a lot of them. So yeah, that was lunch. And then at dinner, I'll probably have like banana smoothie and follow it with like greens and avocado, something simple like that.
Yum. That all sounds so good. Look, when you started and you went on to the vegetables first, were you craving the vegetables? Is that why you did? They're raw vegetables, you mean, don't you?
I remember I did crave a lot of starchy vegetables, mainly like I wanted like carrots all the time and sugar snap peas, but it's really hard to get enough calories of that, even if it is more dense veggie. So that's where I would like end up cooking a lot of sweet potatoes. But that's not to say that cooked foods aren't healing. Like I think a lot of cooked fruits and vegetables can be great, especially during that time in my life. Like
Mm,
I just wanted warm stuff all the time, so it
mm.
worked.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, the reason I ask is I remember when I healed is I had fruits during the day, but I really craved the greens and the veggies, and I was very underweight when I started with malabsorption, and I felt that my body was really demineralized, whereas now it's more stable and it's just like loving being fueled. But I remember at the start, um, I was like really, even although they were all raw, I was really craving foods like that too. But
mhm. That was probably part of it. Like when I first was just eating like a lot of veggies and it wasn't really enough calories, but I just felt so good. Like that's all I wanted because my neighbors have like this really, really big garden of like endless fruits and vegetables that like they just put on the street for free. So they let me go and pick stuff there all the time. So I just kind of like lived in that garden basically and would make like big,
oh,
yeah, it was really good. And like I did probably need a lot of those micronutrients, but like if you don't get enough macronutrients, your body ends up depleting its own micronutrient stores in larger amounts, so you can't catch up to it. But
mm,
now I still will have big salads from their gardens, especially in the summer.
that must have
And
been
that's what I
so.
do. I'm in BC. I'm in like Canada, which people think of as igloos, and I've done well in this diet, so anybody can do it.
Yeah, and that must have been so healing having fresh, like having a garden, like being actually while the like fruit and plants are there thriving, and then they're like offering themselves to make you better, is how I see it. That's
Yeah.
that is really beautiful. And that moves me on to, do you
But
feel, sorry, go on.
I just wanted to touch quickly on like I haven't really talked about it much, but um during that time when I got like re-exposed with the trauma and that, and I started to like suppress my emotions more than ever, before I had the near death experience, which happened after, um, that led to me like being bulimic, which I had never done in my life. Because like usually if you have anorexia, you kind of identify more as like perfectionist. And I was into like bodybuilding, and I just thought that like nothing like that would ever affect me. But then once I was like just so in that negative headspace, I got into that space where the only way to escape hospital was to eat more food. You'd get out sooner. And to like mentally escape such a traumatizing place for me, I would just like eat all day, and my mom would only bring me like unhealthy foods. So it was like McDonald's and stuff. But I didn't eat any animals. But I did end up still like going into emotional eating patterns. And the bulimia thing actually got me stuck for like a year, where like I'm really ashamed of it still, but I'm just gonna share it because like it's what
Yeah,
happened. And that's
no.
where I was like literally be in the house just like continuing to eat and throw up, and that's all I did because I was so scared of my emotions. So that's where like once you actually deal with your emotions, you're free of literally living in constant fear state. And the only way to get out of that is to eat foods that allow your feelings to flow and not be eating and digesting foods that don't allow you to process your emotions. And also you can't just not eat, like by throwing up all day, you're not even going to be eating enough of the living foods to allow that light to shine through you and to have that energy to realize that life is actually really good when you're not engaged in those addictions that you just feel so bad that you keep escaping and escaping and escaping, when you need to learn how to be present in a life you love rather than escaping a life that you're afraid of and that you fear and that you hate, right?
Mm. It's all a lot of trauma, and it's all, to me, it's when you're, very vulnerable and you've been very sick, and if you haven't eaten for a long period of time, and there's many reasons your body doesn't want food, but what if at some level your body identifies and is trying to tell you that the food is not good? So the food
Yeah.
is, most of the food in society is not good, and you're at your lowest point and forced to eat things that do not make you feel good. And there's probably people out there right now who are trying to get through times like this, or even in hospital, what do you, or what would you recommend to them to do when they're at that point where they've got to follow instructions? They're feeling like, it's not good for them. What would you say to them to help them through?
When I was in hospital, like as a kid, I was the first person to ever restore my weight as a vegan. So like when I was in children's hospital, they let me eat plant-based foods the whole time. So just like really talking with your treatment team, but it took a lot of convincing. Like I had to explain to them like how ethical it was for me versus like diet focused, and how like if you like I would rather eat a curried chickpea dish than a plain chicken breast, not because like the chickpeas have way more calories than the chicken, but I would still choose the chickpea dish because that's what I enjoy and that's what is like aligned with allowing me to heal myself without harming the environment or the animals.
Mm,
So I was able to allow that, and I hope that that paved the way for them allowing other people to do that as well. And
yeah.
if not, like vegetarian for the time being. But for the most part, I think people are more so allowing a vegan focus, even if you just stuck to the vegetarian options and then ask for soy milk instead of the
Mm,
cow's milk usually works. And if you are in hospital, also just allowing yourself and giving yourself permission and not being guilty about those choices that aren't yours. So there was an instance where I had to eat meat one time as an adult because they stopped listening to anything that I said because I'm just labeled as mentally insane. So I didn't have a voice, and just like the animals don't have a voice, and just like I feel like a prisoner and so are the animals, like it's an issue. But I was, yeah, they put meat on the plate, and if I didn't eat it, I didn't get anything else. And I would be in hospital longer. I'd have the tube feed. Like there was just a lot of things against me where I was like, okay, I'm just gonna try this. And I was so sick for the next 4 days. I got COVID, which I haven't taken vaccines. I haven't done like anything, but and I've never gotten sick actually since I've been vegan for 10 years now.
mm.
Well, coming up to 10 years, it's 9 years. But yeah, as soon as I had that meat, the next day I had COVID, which was really weird.
Wow.
Um, and I just like, yeah, it was obviously not a good experience, and I felt awful for a long time. So I would never do that again. And if they are in hospital, what I was saying is they do have to not be guilty for that though. Like if they're forcing animal products, which usually they won't, but they might force vegetarian, and you can't be guilty about it. You can't add to that negativity of this food is bad for me, because it will be. Because this last time that I was tube fed, I was like so scared of it happening to me, but I forced myself when it was happening because it's always so painful for me. But I told myself to focus on love. And when I focused on love, it didn't hurt at all. Like it
Mm,
was completely no feeling, like at all. Like I put myself in this state where there was no pain. And when I had the tube feed, I told myself that I could stay healthy and be mentally thinking good no matter what was going in my body. And I
mm.
read books the whole time, and I felt fine. Like I was able to do it. So your mind is really powerful too.
It is really powerful. That's some great advice about the veganism and vegetarian options. What I've noticed is I was vegan for all my psychiatric stays, and that was fine. What I wasn't in for an eating disorder at the end, though, but the eating disordered, the girls, most of them were girls that were in the eating disordered area. A lot of them are vegan and vegetarian, and I think that is, once again, it's part of the reason you become so vulnerable and get where you are is because you're awakening, as in to the world and to yourself. And part of that is, doing what's right for you and the planet. So I think that's really great to talk to your team about what you want, and even if a compromise can be made, that would be really great. So can I ask you, sorry, do you want to say something?
It's just a good point with when it comes to someone feeling almost like if somebody has bulimia or if somebody has digestive issues, it's literally their body responding to that food, like this food is not good for you. But then you're blamed, like, oh, you're the one that feels guilty about eating that food or feels anxiety and depression when the food's causing that, or
Mm,
when the food is literally not good for you. So like somebody feels really nauseous or something. And then yeah, so it's just once you're actually eating foods that work well for your body, you'll naturally be able to eat natural food, reach a natural healthy weight, maintain a natural state of health. And if
mm,
you keep repeating that mantra too, like that helped me a lot. Just like your beliefs around food and surrounding yourself by positive people, and just realizing like nature literally is so beautiful and so incredible, and you're literally not only a part of that, like you are that. and just recognizing that power and eating those foods with that realization of like how connected it is and how it's all the information for healing is within that food and you're putting that into your body and
Yeah.
all that information going into you. Like there's just something really powerful about that that can heal anybody if they really believe it and they are eating those foods with that intention of love. Oops. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such an awakening when you realize the food that we eat is the download. Like you literally like think of yourself as a computer and then you take the food, which, you know, you can have food it's just dead chemical structures or which is alive. And then you put it in and it's like the software, right? It's how the computer comes alive and that's you. I think that's really powerful. So, um, I wanted to ask you, going through all this and even now, who inspired you or who
Ooh.
does inspire you?
Well, obviously, like the first person that I ever went raw vegan was actually like Ted Carr because after the retreat, I even like went to his house and that. But during that time, I remember I actually cooked him like sweet potatoes and stuff. Like I got him to eat cooked food for the first time. But then after that, I ended up going raw vegan and haven't looked back. So that was my first exposure. But I thought that those people were crazy. Like I thought it was an eating disorder, and I was like, I remember he said stuff even about how when you put something in your body, like it really triggered me at the time. He was like, oh, like if you eat um say like how even I was talking about earlier that like you should eat lighter to heavier, it just feels better. But he said something about that even about having like cashew and then oranges, which makes sense. Like you eat a bunch of cashews and then you ate oranges, that's not gonna go very well.
No.
But anytime you stuff like that about like your digestion getting clogged up, it bothered me so much. I was like, that's an eating disorder rule and like all this stuff, but it's not. It's just natural and it's just like what happens. You can't argue that. And I find a lot of the time, like anybody that's getting mad at me even now, I'm like, I don't care. Like if you're putting out a lot of love, there's people that want hate to be on this planet, or there's people that are really just like you'll get comment sections. It's just people fighting themselves. They're not fighting
Yes.
you.
Yes, yes, yes. And you know what? There is so many people that comment like they just it's very judgment. It's very what I find it's very what's the word? So it's very learnt behavior. So they've learnt it from somebody who's written it on maybe PubMed, a journal article, and from school, the brain's trained to read and then recite. So they see it doesn't align and they just recite what they've read. But I always link, this is like in comment section, I always link where I've been. And when I start feeling like, you know, my journey and one of my reels, and then I watch it to remind myself of how far I've come because you know, a lot of people's opinions who are not in alignment with you can, you know, well, I don't know, add up over time. So do you still get a lot of comments?
Yeah, it's still like that on my page, but I don't even care because there's like more people that are coming in that are more aligned. And I hated myself at one point when I was transitioning. I was like confused about it. So that's probably just a reflection
Yeah.
of that. Like it's just a reflection of yourself. So like as I continue to just put out only positive things, like there'll be more positive people. And it has gotten a lot better. Like the first thing I put out, it was like all my old people, and now it's been like a lot more positive.
I love
But
that.
the people that inspired me was definitely like Dr. Morse's stuff.
Yeah.
I've watched like most of his stuff. I did a regenerative detox certification program, but it wasn't through him. So like everything he says, I definitely agree with, and like getting your lymph moving and just being like more fruit focused. I remember like I have done in the past like coconut water only or Concord grape juice only and melon only. Like I've done those type of things as well. And he just gave me kind of permission to like believe in my body. But I definitely don't agree with like needing to have herbs to heal because we see it if people are healing by water fasting, which obviously doesn't work for anorexia, but if they're healing things, then it's obviously not just the food that gets your body. So
Mm.
that helps. And then I also really liked Gillian because of all the different perspectives. So that's like tons of influencers. Like I don't like to just get my information from one source. I'm always looking
Yes.
at tons of places and then trying it out for myself and then giving an opinion. So
Yeah.
a lot of people. And also I actually it did help reading before I read Medical Mediums, I read Dr. Doug Graham's like 80-10-10 book.
Yep.
That's probably the most helpful, simple nutrition book that like changed it and made me make the switch is actually that book still, yeah.
Well, that's good. They're all really good places to get inspiration from. I mean, and also a variety is so important because you can't, if you really just follow one person, you just become them. don't you? You want to really become who you are, and no two people are the same. I mean, Dr. Morse lives in one place, has had his own life. He's a male. He's been through his own things. If you just follow what he's done, it's not going to align. So,
Mhm.
um,
And it helps have people that are almost just like for me, because I'm 22 now, but but I always feel like I'm old because like when you get traumatized, you get stuck in that age. But also, I don't know, like I've been a younger sister my whole life, so I always just have like this younger feeling about me. So when I see people that are like adults, like I'm an adult too, but I see you and Gillian as like adults and they're pushing this, like they have this lifestyle, and that kind of gave me more permission, like seeing that other women were like living a great life how I was, and it doesn't have to be disordered. And those people don't have eating disorders, but they're following this diet that apparently is an eating disorder when I do it. So it's like,
yeah, I think when I see once again, when I see you sharing, you look so alive. And I think that's what it's about. And if you trigger people, you trigger people, but you just keep doing you, because it helps me. I love seeing you. Like, you bring such an energy in what you do. And I once again think it's because you've been through so much. The difference is like, well, for me, it's like night and day, right? Is where I was to how I feel now is just incredible. And it's probably like that for you too, is it?
yeah, exactly. No, I noticed it with you right away, just that you're coming from a long passive experience and trying your own thing. And it is from your own personal experience, not just what you're hearing, but you also have a good understanding of what's going on in the raw vegan space. So that was really beautiful to see.
Oh, thank you. So, with what part of your life, or like, where do you, like you were saying, you're a child, like you see yourself as, child, like still in that childlike state, and now you've come into, womanhood. How do you feel you've embraced that womanhood now? Is that the stage you're at? Are you finding yourself coming through that? Like, is the trauma still coming up? Is there PTSD?
I don't feel it coming up at all anymore because I've had to deal with it the hard way. And once you get over that, like it just doesn't come up for me. Like none of that bothers me anymore, and I'm able to speak about it. And I just don't identify with any like lower parts of anybody's consciousness. Like you got to identify with like love and light and good things, and then how could you ever hate yourself?
Yeah, you've got to look after
And
you.
I definitely, like I want to be a leader for others, and I want to be like in my feminine power, because that's obviously something that this whole world needs a lot more of, is just more females that are empowered. And there's even just something beautiful about eating fruit, right? Like it's obviously the ovary of a plant. So it
That's
helps you become
right.
fertile and live a fruitful life, full on fruit, full of fruit. I always like to find little sayings like that too.
I heard you say that the other day in one of your reels. It's the ovaries of fruit. And I've been thinking about the importance of that and what that actually means. So yeah, you keep sharing. Um, where's your health now? So I assume that with what you've been through, you accumulated like deficiencies and problems with your health. How's your health doing now?
I actually got a bone scan, which like the last time I got it, I lost a bunch of bone density in my hips and somewhere else. Yeah, mainly my hips and like your legs or something. And when I got that done again, I actually reversed that. And I would 100% say that's from eating fruits, because of the fact that nobody else has said that that's possible. Like they say that once it's gone, or it would have gotten a lot worse for me because I've recently gotten a lot worse, like in the past, right? Like I did fall back into it. So I was expecting it to be a lot worse, but I only got it done. This was only a month ago, and it's a lot better.
Well, that's good. And look, you've been through so much and you're so young. Like, you really have to have near-death experiences, tubes, feeling alone, traumatized. So you're definitely going to have this extended period all the way up to when you're 111 of this beautiful life. Like, what I've seen you achieve, you said it's only been 3 to 6 months, maybe a year, that you've been like, doing this, and
Yeah.
you've achieved so much. What goals do you have next?
A lot of it's like taking it day by day. Like I want to make sure my message is out there. I want to get on more interviews. I want to keep filming like more courses and more programs. I've done like I have more shorter courses that are like 8 weeks long, but I am working also on like a group program, Revolutionary Recovery Remedy, which will guide people like step by step exactly how I would have done it when it did work out, and being able to like guide people through that a more holistic, like natural way of healing, along with yoga and all other parts of health holistically. And then eventually like running more retreats, because my mom has like a nice place here in 100 Mile that has like a cabin and horses, and just helping people connect with like nature and fruits and themselves. Or renting a place like out somewhere more sunny and tropical with all those tropical fruits. And then I am also traveling next month to Ecuador, so that will be like my first time actually going to a tropical place.
Oh, wow.
Visit a tropical place and connect with my real self there. Um, and I also am going to.
Sorry to interrupt. If you've achieved all of this in Canada and you haven't experienced the tropical life yet, man, look out. You're going to start beaming. You'll have I can just imagine you'll be like beaming all over the place. You'll be so happy there.
Yeah, because like here, I understand when my dad's like, oh, like I need to be a hunter because he's a hunter. Because like you would have to be a hunter here. Like there's no food in the freaking winter.
Yeah.
So no, that'll be good. Like connecting to where we're obviously naturally from, because like we're not going to last very long in the winter with bare feet. Like naked, we need to be in a beachy tropical place with the good sweet fruits.
It's funny you said that, because that's exactly what Lauren Lockman said as well. I was interviewing him, and he was in Amsterdam at the time. I think that's where he was. And he's like, I can't just go out with, no top on, and walk around, with no shoes on. He goes, I won't last long. So it's yeah, at least I think it's nice to know that we should do well and we would be thriving where we are, which is warmer, if we're somewhere tropical.
Yeah, I've only been on a plane once, and it was only an hour, and it's like with my mom. It was to California. So is that tropical?
Subtropical,
Yeah.
I think it's like
Yeah,
Sydney.
but I didn't even get to go on the beach. I just went and did my cheer routine as like a kid. So it was just more so stressful, and I flew back right away. And then this one to Ecuador is like 16 hours, and I'm just going alone, and I'm like, okay.
Oh, wow. You'll love it. You'll love it so much.
Yeah, and after that, I have it booked for like Fit Shorty, their type of retreat to
Yes.
it's Thailand and Costa Rica that I'm going to. So that'll be really good, because that's going to be all the best fruits.
It will be. You'll have the best time. I'm so happy for you. Good on
Like
you.
I'm working to host my own retreats, but I got to experience others' retreats first, and then know the best things to offer. And until then, just more so doing like one-on-one coaching, but group coaching, and focusing on the programs and helping as many people as I possibly can, because that's just what makes me feel the most filled with love and light, which is what we all are.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And I will put all your details below. So if anyone wants to connect to Jen and her programs and all she does, that will be below. I want to finish off by asking you, is there anything you want to share with everybody that's in your heart?
All there is love. That's all there is.
Oh, I think that's beautiful. It's so true. It really is. And you emanate that every day. You really do.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm really glad to be able to have this place to share. And if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to help them. And I'm excited to interview you in the next video too.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, subscribe below, and I'll see you all soon. Bye, guys.
Bye.